What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode from Draft Nerds. Today, we're going to be talking about the NFL Combine. It is officially NFL Combine week now, so we're going to be getting a lot of new information to hit our feeds, to hit our inboxes this week as these players go out and test. Now, that being said, we're going to get very excited about some of these performances. I want to put out a little caveat before we get into it and tell you guys that, yes, the NFL Combine is important. It's a piece to the puzzle. It is not everything for these players. It's not the end all be all. Players can go out and have bad performances at the NFL Combine and still become good NFL players. And players can go out and have great Combine performances and not translate to the NFL. So this is a piece to the puzzle. It's not everything. I just want to get that out of the way. But today we're going to talk about 5 players I think could rise if they go out and have good Combine performances for their NFL draft capital here as we approach the NFL draft in April. So the first player I want to talk about in today's video is going to be Ty Simpson, quarterback from Alabama. Now, obviously, this is a quarterback who is a former 5-star recruit. He finally got his starting opportunity for the Crimson Tide there in 2025. He had a 2025 season here where he had 3,567 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, the lowest career interception percentage in school history, and that was all within 15 total starts. I think this is a quarterback who's a high-end processing type of quarterback. He's very accurate. I think he's very good with the football in his hands at making the right decision downfield. Obviously, we saw that with that low career interception percentage. He's very efficient. He's composed, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And even though we had the limited starting experience from him at this collegiate level, it's kind of got a projection debate going on around him in NFL draft circles. Is he worth the risk? Because 15 starts is risky. And I think we're starting to see him flirt with this maybe back into the first round NFL draft capital or early day 2 type of draft capital conversations that are happening right now with Ty Simpson. That being said, I do think this is a player where he could be a very quiet riser if he does have a good workout here in Indianapolis this week. There's a couple drills that I'm going to be watching here for Ty Simpson. The first one's going to be the 3-cone drill. And the reason why is because I think it's going to confirm some of the agility that we saw from Ty Simpson in the pocket on the film there at Alabama. I think that's a little bit of a secret cheat code that he has to his game. Not that he's a super athlete or one of those guys like Lamar Jackson, but I do think he has some mobility to his game. So I want to see him go out and, show some of that in the 3-cone agility drill. I also want to see some of these off-platform throws be made during that on-field workout that we're seeing from the quarterback. So if he can do that, we'll see some of the agility, some of the off-platform stuff. I think it's going to answer some of the questions about Ty Simpson, and it could start to push his draft conversation into day 1, kind of where Jackson Dart was last year for the New York Giants. So he's the first player I'm going to be watching. Now, the second one for me is going to be Emmett Johnson, running back from Nebraska. He's coming off of a 2025 season where he had 1,451 rushing yards, which was the Big Ten leader, and averaged 5.8 yards per carry, 46 receptions in the receiving game, 250 plus carries, the Big Ten running back of the year, and was a first-team All-American. It was an awesome season for Emmett Johnson as the running back for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, he is a player that I think has proven that he can be given a workhorse type of load and has some efficiency with that given profile. I think he's a player that has proven that he has the receiving profile. We saw it in some of the usage there in Nebraska, and that could translate to a running back that could profile as a 3-down guy at the next level. Right now, I see him as a guy who's flirting with day 2 value. I think he has some upside in his game, probably somewhere in that 3rd to 4th round range is where I'm currently viewing Emmett Johnson right now. But if he's going to go out to Indianapolis, I want to see a couple of these tests like the 10-yard split to show off some of the burst and the acceleration that I saw in his game. I want to see the shuttle. I want to see that short area quickness get proven in that shuttle drill. And I want to see him go out and show out in the gauntlet where we can show off those receiving hands, those ability to catch the football while staying fluid, staying in motion, running through that line. I want to see all of that happen there with Emmett Johnson. I think if he does that, he's going to be a player who starts checking a lot of the boxes for the modern day NFL offenses and slowly becomes a player that becomes interesting for these NFL teams to take a risk on in the NFL draft. So let's go to my next guy. It's wide receiver Denzel Boston, coming out of Washington in 2025, 62 catches, 881 yards, 11 touchdowns, and had a 76.9% contested catch rate. Now, he's 6'4", 210 pounds. Profiling is one of the few prototypical X wide receivers outside on the boundary, and he is a red zone weapon, a guy who wins above the rim, and is a guy that I think kind of profiles as one of those guys like Cortland Sutton and a Michael Pittman Jr. and these guys that you can play outside as a true number one X. Now for him, I think some of the questions are going to be in the athleticism, more specifically the speed for him. So the 40-yard dash is going to be something I'm paying attention to. I think it could be the swing factor to him becoming a round one NFL draft pick. I want to see him somewhere in that mid to high 4.4s. If he can do that or even run faster than that, I think a lot of teams are going to start looking at him like, yeah, he has the speed to separate at this next level, and he's going to be somebody who rises up draft boards. If you're looking for a secondary drill, I think some of the verticals, some of the broad jumps are also going to kind of show off some of the explosion that he might have in his game. So that's going to be a lot of the validation I'm looking for Denzel Boston this week. And if he does run well, if he shows off some of that athleticism, I think he's a player who can legitimately start to rise up draft boards very rapidly. All right, my next player is going to be another wide receiver. It's going to be wide receiver Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. Looking at last season, 61 receptions, 919 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He averaged 7.2 yards after the catch, had a 27% target share, 2 punt return touchdowns, and was a multiple award winner in college football. A lot of people are excited about Casey Concepcion. I think that's truly something to be excited about because he does have a lot of elite versatility in his game, and some of the playmaking that you've seen with him, especially when he has the football in his hands, is spectacular to see at times. He has some target hog tendencies. We saw that at Texas A&M, and that dynamic yak profile is something that's going to get NFL teams excited. I do have some questions as to whether or not he's a guy who's mainly going to be a slot-only weapon or a guy who can play a little bit of Z at the next level. I think he's shown traits to be a potential Z, but I'm worried about the size. And that's the biggest thing that I'm watching with Casey Concepcion this week. I want to see that official measurement. I want to see the height and weight. Right now, he's listed at 5'11". If he comes in any less than that, I think we have some reasons to worry about him becoming a gadget player or a slot-only label at the next level. You also want to see some of that 40-yard dash. Obviously, this is a player who wins on athleticism. I need to see him run fast. It's going to be the driver for some of the draft capital with him. And the vertical is going to also check off some of that explosiveness box. I want to see all of those things from him here this weekend. As far as the thresholds for you guys keeping track at home, anything under 5'10 really starts making me think he's going to be a slot-only label. Anything that he runs, I would say less than 4.4s. I want to see him in those 4.3s. Probably starts to put a little bit of a damper on some of the athleticism for him too. So I want to see him in that 4.3 range, 4.35, 4.38, somewhere around there. I'm going to feel good about it, but we need to see him measure in as a true 5'11", because if he's any smaller than that, I'm starting to have some worries. And let's go on to my last player, man. I want to talk about Max Klare, the tight end from Ohio State. His 2025 season, he had 43 receptions, 448 receiving yards, and 17 games where he had multiple catches in those games for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think he's one of the safest tight end profiles in this NFL draft. He just profiles as a really good player at all things being required from the tight end position. He's a good blocker. He's a good receiver. He has good athleticism, good hands. There's a lot of good in Max Klare's profile. I think he's reliable. I think the consistent usage that we saw out of him at Ohio State and at Purdue before he transferred to Ohio State was worthy of being a legitimate receiving weapon at the NFL level. He's a guy who I think is a seam stretcher. I think he has that ability in his game and a plus blocker. So he's somebody that I think has a lot to gain here. He's probably going to impress some of these NFL coaches. What I want to watch from him this weekend is the 40-yard dash and the vertical and broad jump. A lot of these are going to be the athleticism tests. I want to see him run a 40-yard dash in that 4.65 subcategory. I want to see him right around there. I think if he does, you're going to see the athleticism start to be a conversation piece, a guy who's a little bit of a sneaky athlete. You're going to hear those pieces, and he's going to be somebody who rises. So I think this is a player who has a lot to gain this week. He could be a very, very solid day 2 pick for an NFL franchise, for somebody who wants somebody who's well-rounded at their tight end position and isn't looking for a specific role to be filled, like a blocker, maybe a Josh Oliver type, or a receiver like a Colston Loveland. If you want the all-around package, I think Max Klare is one of those guys for you. So there you have it. Very quick, very easy. 5 players I'm watching this weekend here in Indianapolis. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. Who are you watching in Indianapolis this week? Who do you think has a lot to gain? But with that being said, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button. We'll see you on the next one. Till then, peace out.